In our last episode, Napoleon escaped exile from Elba and landed at Golfe-Juan with just 1,000 loyal troops. The tricolour was raised once more, and the 100 Days had begun. But now lies the real challenge. Napoleon must march across hostile France towards Paris. That too without bloodshed. Lyonsburg Cinematic History presents The 100 Days War, in association with 11 Labs. Part 2, The Long March to Paris. The nearest towns of Cannes and Grasse did not welcome Napoleon. The royalist mayors cursed his name and provisions had to be seized by force. The news of Napoleon's return must have spread like wildfire, and royalist forces were expected any minute. Napoleon had 3 options: the fastest and most direct route to Paris via Provence and Marseille, swarming with royalists. A suicide, the more central route via the royalist towns along the Rhone. That may be, but the emperor had another route in mind. One that was not only symbolic, but also a reminiscence of his glorious Italian campaign. It was the Alpine route through the royalist city of Grenoble and Lyon, perhaps the most dangerous yet remarkably rewarding if the Napoleonic gambit paid. Napoleon thus pressed into the Alps, abandoning cannons, carriages, and horses in the snow. His little army was now marching on foot through mountain paths more suited for shepherds than soldiers. It was 7th of March, 1815, and Napoleon, with mere 1,000 guards, marched towards Grenoble. Near the village of Lamour, Napoleon encountered a battalion of royal soldiers, 800 strong. It was the 5th Regiment of Line, ordered by Lieutenant General Jean-Gabriel Marchand, the military governor of Grenoble, to block the road. Muskets leveled as the vanguard of Napoleon's column reached the pass. The 2 bodies were drawn in line when the emperor appeared on the road wearing his famous grey coat. Napoleon ordered his troops to lower their muskets to reduce tension, but the battalion from Grenoble continued. Suddenly, Captain Randon, one of Marchand's camp assistants accompanying the battalion, ordered the men, "Fire!" But nothing happened. To everyone's surprise, Napoleon stepped forward. He saluted Captain Randon. "Soldiers of the 5th Infantry Regiment, I am your emperor," he shouted out in an unusually loud parade ground voice. "If there is any soldier among you who wishes to kill his emperor, here I am." But how could they? There stood their beloved emperor. In a rush, the soldiers broke ranks, threw down their Bourbon cockades and cried, "Vive l'Empereur!" They rushed to embrace him, some kneeling at his feet, others kissing his sword. The bewildered Captain Randon fled the field in utter dismay. It was Major de Lessart who stepped forward, handing Napoleon his sword. The emperor embraced the major warmly in return. As they marched towards the city, they were joined by the 7th Infantry Regiment of Line. Its young Colonel Charles, Comte de la Bédoyère, broke the skin of the drum and revealed an imperial eagle of Napoleon's empire. Such was the loyalty of the troops towards Napoleon. The tricolour returned to the city halls. The crowds sang the Marseillaise. Grenoble thus capitulated, and from a mere 1,000 men. Napoleon's force swelled up to 8,000. Napoleon's march to Paris had truly begun. The garrison at Grenoble was nothing compared to that of Lyon. Napoleon's true test, the garrison of Lyon, numbered around 6,000 to 7,000 men under General Breyer. It included line infantry, National Guards, and detachments of cavalry and artillery. But the biggest concern was the presence of the king's brother himself, the Comte d'Artois, in Lyon. On the 9th of March, Comte d'Artois reviewed the Lyon Garrison. In his speech, he called Napoleon a usurper with just a handful of men. When he demanded cries of "Vive le roi," the soldiers, however, stayed silent. D'Artois understood where their loyalty lied. By dawn, the king's brother and the royal commanders had fled Lyon. That same night, Napoleon entered Lyon to thunderous shouts of "Vive l'Empereur" and "Down with the Bourbons." From Lyon, he marched out on March 13th, not with a ragged band, but with a swelling army of 14,000 infantry, cavalry, and artillery. Town after town fell for the emperor's cause, Auxerre included. Paris was now within reach. But danger loomed ahead. According to rumors, a royalist army, 60,000 strong, was forming under none other than Marshal Ney, the bravest of the brave, the once Napoleon's most loyal marshal. Would Ney stand as thorn in Napoleon's path, or betray the Bourbons? We will soon find out. But the stage was set for an event that would decide the very course of this campaign. The desperate King Louis placed his last hopes on Marshal Michel Ney. Ney thundered that Napoleon was a mad dog and swore to drag him back to Paris in an iron cage. However, despite the king's hopes of 60,000, Ney could only muster around 6,000 men. The incompetent government at Paris had failed to give him further instructions or even indicate what regiments he was to draw upon for his 60,000 force. Ney was furious. Hearing of Napoleon's victorious rapid advance, Ney switched sides. Ney had been the king's last hope. Panic swept the palace as the news of Ney's betrayal reached Paris. Ministers schemed, generals demanded bribes, and plots of coup filled the night. After bribing his ministers to follow him, Louis XVIII slipped into a carriage with Marshal Berthier and Blacas. With nearly 20,000 men now under his command, Napoleon pushed on towards Paris. The French throne awaited its former master. That evening, Napoleon entered Paris. His mud-splattered carriage was swarmed by jubilant crowds, officers hoisting him on their shoulders up the palace steps. The emperor had returned. History at its finest, from exile on Elba to the throne of France in just 20 days. Napoleon shook the world with his return. But will the powers of Europe give in to such an act? Or will they unite once again and declare war, not on France, but on one man, Napoleon Bonaparte? We shall cover that in our next episode, along with some of the first major engagements of the Waterloo campaign. Make sure you are subscribed to Lionsberg Cinematic and not miss a single episode of the 100 Days War series. Thank you for watching and see you next weekend.